in the next couple of minutes. But the other storm to watch, and there really are several at the moment, but the other storm to watch right now is out across Franklin County, some big downpours. And let me put this again into into motion to show you all of these cells. Now we're kind of in a little different mode that sort of de-amplifies the energy, but one of the storms we're watching is building through Franklin County too, and that storm system will continue to work to the north and east toward Washington, eventually Warrenton, and into the 70 corridor. The strongest, obviously, is the one that's working into the Carlyle area. While we are showing you Chris on the right-hand side of the screen, I do want to bring in meteorologist John Fuller, who has been watching out for storm reports. And John, what can you tell us? What are you seeing?
Well, hail is the main thing that we've been seeing on the radar, and it's been within this box, this tornado warning box. And I'll step out of the way and we'll query what size hail that was falling in that general area. And hail, Trenton County, Clinton, 505, 1-inch size hail. That'll certainly do some damage to roofs. Another one, we slide a little further to the east, 1-inch size hail in Aviston. That's in Clinton County, and that was just a few minutes ago. And in addition, Glenn, as we anticipated, a new tornado watch has been issued, and this one in effect until 10 p.m. So even though we had that isolated radar indicated tornado warning, there are more situations or more clusters of developing, blossoming thunderstorms that may become tornadic as we head through the evening hours. That's all from here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, again, monitoring all of the storms across the bi-state area. I was wrong, sorry, just let me clarify. There still is a tornado warning for that cell near Carlyle, and so that's why we continue to monitor that. As John mentioned, there are several other cells, and the Weather Service is pointing also not just to Franklin County, but also western St. Louis County and parts of St. Charles County. There's a storm system, and it's moving almost over the Doppler radar, but this one also has some downburst winds, potentially some 50-mile-an-hour winds, kind of in that Highway 94 corridor of St. Charles County. You go from 6440 there, Weldon Springs, and you go down 94, and you get to Defiance and probably almost to Numelli. But along that view there are some winds coming out of that thunderstorm complex that could be damaging. So really anywhere from Metro St. Louis in the 70 corridor, east and west, we're seeing strong and developing thunderstorms that have the potential for rotation, have the potential for damaging winds, have the potential that the rotation eventually turns into a tornadic cell, and then potentially brings in the funnels to ground and brings in tornadoes to the ground. Let's bring in Chris one more time again as he keeps out ahead of the system, the dynamic storm that continues to show rotation. And Chris, I know that you just communicated with the Weather Service that you do see a wall cloud within your sights.
Yeah, this wall cloud has come and gone in various degrees and sizes and organization. It's not as big and it's not as well organized as it was earlier when we were further south towards Interstate 64, but it's still present. And as we get a little further out, this whole front edge of the storm is rotating a bit. And in fact, that's probably the best view right there. I don't know if the folks back at the station can, let's see, if you can get to max. It looks like I don't have control of the telestration in max, but you can definitely see the overall size of the wall cloud. It's going to be right in the middle of your screen there. That low-hanging cloud. Again, this is the area of the storm where the updraft is the strongest, and typically the interface between the rotation, kind of, if you will, the center of the low pressure. If you're looking at it as a surface map of high and low pressure, it's very much like a low pressure system with a warm front and a cold front attached to it, and that's what we're looking at in the center of right there. So yeah, this is we're coming out of right now Breeze. We're off to the east on our way towards Carlyle. It appears that the storm is still kind of status quo in terms of its ability to go from spinning aloft to spinning down to the ground. But it's right on the cusp. Any number of times it's been very close to producing a tornado, and that's why we have to have that tornado warning in effect to give folks the alert time so that they can be prepared. But a very ominous, certainly looking visually storm. We talk about the dark, scary cloud that sometimes people need to see to get them to take shelter. This one ranks right up there. It is one of the darker and uglier ones we've seen so far this year, but fortunately, to this point, the bark has been worse than the bite so far. Glenn?
With the light angle, you can really see the swirl of this system that's really well defined. Back to Max 1 real quick, and we talked about, or Chris mentioned, getting advanced warning out with that current cell. 5:39 here, so in the next few minutes for Beckmeyer, Carlyle. Anytime a school comes up on our screen, we're really concerned. St. Mary's School at 5:44. Marydale at 5:48, Carlyle Lake State Wildlife Management Area, that's essentially Carlyle Lake. So at 6:02, the storm is over Carlyle Lake. So really anywhere within that moving cell, moving north and east, and I've mapped it out at a 20-mile-an-hour pace. But Chris is mentioning the rotation and what we see on the Doppler radar. So we're essentially getting schooled here in Tornado Development 101. That's the rotation on the Doppler radar, right in through here. Normally you would see hail right in through there on a velocity mode. John likes to use the phrase couplet a lot, and we see winds going to and from the radar scan. So anywhere where the green and the red are coming together, that's what we call the couplet. And anytime you see something that looks like that on a Doppler radar, that is at least mid-level rotation. And the distance of the Doppler radar would definitely say that that is mid-level rotation, but potentially that mid-level could extend from the base of the cloud as a funnel to the ground as a tornado. And so again, on the right-hand side of your screen, then the visual and the ground truth of a rotating thunderstorm that has the potential for damaging hail, for outflow winds that could be over 50 or 60 miles an hour as Chris pulls into Carlyle and the marina area there at Carlyle. This is a damaging storm, or at least potentially damaging storm. So Chris is right here, right in through here, and he's looking right into this storm and giving you a really broad view of a rotating wall cloud, a rotating storm that at the moment doesn't have a tornado, at least on the ground, but is showing us mid-level rotation that potentially could. And I mean, I don't know, when was the first time, Chris, I texted you and like, we need to watch this storm that just rolled past Waterloo, and pretty soon Weather Service put a tornado warning on it. You were on it in New Baden, and it's really had the potential for a tornado, but nothing visible just yet.
Yeah, we are still learning a lot about tornado genesis, like what takes a storm from becoming a storm like this and becoming a storm that produces a tornado. And so, you know, that's why we're always out studying. And this is a storm that has all of the classic hallmarks of a storm that wants to produce a tornado, but yet it's not right now. It's in an environment that is favorable. It's along a warm front. And as you look at it, and guys, if you can, again, we have this warning that's in effect. It's a radar indicated warning, but if the guys at the station can go ahead and bring Max 13 back up, because this is, if you can step away from the dangerous part of this, the threat of this, it's just such a well-organized little system here that as a meteorologist, it is really remarkable to see see this all come together. So you can almost see this whole thing rotating, like right in here, rotating back around in there. And then up here, you've got the rotation kind of swirling around this way. And all of that's rotating. And then over here on the other side, you've got this air kind of blowing around that way. So you've got all kinds of motion going on there, but yet down here below the cloud level, it's just stable enough where we are that nothing is actually reaching down to the ground. So all the rotation is upstairs, up in this part of the cloud, up above the surface. And to this point, thankfully, it has not found its way down. Now, on the side effect of this is when you get that upper level rotation like we're seeing in here, to the north and kind of northwest of that hook and that rotation, you can get some very large hail, and that's what we've been seeing sporadically. We've been getting those reports of hail that have been pushing what, up to quarter size and maybe some golf ball size hail there, Glenn.
Yeah.
So,
we had some 1-inch hail
that's
over.
the kind of thing that you look for.
Yeah, we had some 1-inch hail over Aveston. Don't see anything that's super hail specific at the moment within this. It's just, you mentioned that mid-level rotation. That is just super visible on the Doppler radar. It is just so well defined at that level. But again, just enough stability that you said at the base of the system toward the ground. And I mean, how many feet is that? 800 feet maybe from?
Well, that's the other thing. You know, in order for tornadoes to develop, we need the cloud bases generally to be, excuse me, we like to see them below 1,500 meters. We're right at that, if not a little lower. This is a low cloud deck, and so it's certainly capable. And we've got some pretty good rotation right in front of us. So these clouds that are right up here at the top, and if we can go back again into max 13, these clouds right up here at the top are going left to right, but you go down a little bit in the distance, these clouds behind it are going right to left. So the core of the rotation is literally just to our north and northwest. And again, just geographically, so folks know where we are, we're on the west side of Carlyle. We're actually at the Chevy dealership. We'll give a little free press because they're letting us use their parking lot, K&J Chevy, on the west side of Carlyle. But as you look back towards this, you know, it has all the hallmarks of a storm that is trying to produce a tornado. And again, thankfully, it's not. You have that rear flank downdraft. And if you can, I don't know if this is possible, I may be asking too much on the fly, but if you double box the radar with max 13, so max, I guess, 1 with max 13, you can almost see the hook echo right in here coming around. So if I draw this on, we're talking, this is literally the hook right there that you're looking at, where you have the comma part of the dark cloud there on the right, and then the clearing in the background. That's what we call the rear flank downdraft. And again, that's what helps push the storm along. If the rear flank downdraft intensifies, that can really give a kick to the uplift and get a tornado developed. We have some pretty good, in fact, this is some of the better uplift we've seen in a while. Right in this area here, kind of on the edge of the wall cloud. It doesn't look like it's going to develop into a tornado. It's somewhat elevated, but still, you can see a little nub here on the wall cloud just to the northwest of Carlyle, kind of on the edge of that wall cloud. There's a good bubble of uplift right in there. Let me zoom in.
Yeah, your max 13 wasn't transferring onto the double box, but I've been pointing at all the things on the Doppler radar, Chris, that you're looking at, including that little updraft area. That's right in through there that you're seeing. So
yeah, that's really getting sucked in. That's really getting sucked in and going up. That's some of the most dramatic uplift that I've seen so far today on the leading edge of this. So we're looking. This is northwest of Carlyle. That's some pretty good uplift and intensification. This thing may be getting ready to try and do something here, Glenn. That is really churning as it goes up.
I was going to say, these go through cycles here. These storms go through cycles where they, you know, have all of the characteristics and the spin, and then they kind of lose it a little bit, and then they redevelop. They get into an environment that can essentially put more gas in the tank, and so they start to spin up again and speed up and start to show more rotation. So we've just kind of, I think, gone through a little bit of a down cycle. While the storm looks impressive live on, you know, the right-hand side of the screen, not as impressive on the Doppler radar, even though we're seeing some notching and some spin with this. But we may be going through a little regeneration. And while we look at that on the right-hand side of the screen, I do want to zoom out just a little bit because of all the other storms that we're monitoring, several that have rolled through downtown St. Louis with some big, heavy rain. The National Weather Service also has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for this storm. This has just happened within the last couple of seconds. You may have heard the beeping behind me. That storm system near Weldon Spring in St. St. Charles, has 60-mile-an-hour winds with it, moving right now to the north into O'Fallon, near St. Peter's, just to the west of St. Peter's, but toward O'Fallon, Lake St. Louis, and a northerly push toward O'Fallon, St. Paul, and eventually into the wind-filled area of southern Lincoln County. That storm system right there, again, damaging winds, potential maybe for some hail, but there's definitely some winds coming out of that system. Part of the issue with measuring this is it's right over the Doppler radar site. I can switch radars really fast here to show you that now in what's called our tower radar that is located in St. Charles. It's the radar that that Lambert uses. And so you can see that storm now building from Weldon Spring to Dardine Prairie toward O'Fallon. It is just going to track to the west of St. Peter's, but might clip Lake St. Louis, St. Paul, and eventually Old Monroe, Winfield, and the southern parts of Lincoln County. Again, 60-mile-an-hour winds with that velocity, not getting velocity. Let me hold on a second. I'm going to do a whole lot of switching here real quick and try to get a velocity. Yeah, look at the spin of that right now. That's the velocity from the tower Doppler radar that Lambert uses. It's located just north of St. Charles, but you can see the rotation of that system, not rotation, but definitely some wind coming out of that system right there on the last couple of phases of this loop. You can see that rotation right there. Now, there may be some mid-level rotation within that. We'll keep an eye on it. It's moving south to north, but as the National Weather Service has indicated, that has 60-mile-an-hour winds. Hail now just being reported at 64 east of Winghaven. That has come to us from the State Highway Patrol Troop C, that they're getting hail within that storm system. It's moving north and east right now. Again, to just sort of reset things, and I'm going to go through a little gyration here, changing the Doppler radar back to a bigger view here from the tower radar to the National Weather Service radar site. I'm sorry, there it is, now clicking back in. So here's our current scenario. Storms are building, and all of the storms you see on your screen right now, we're at 5:48 in the afternoon. All of these have been building over the course of the last 45 minutes to half hour toward Metro St. Louis. All of these have the potential to develop further in an environment that is potentially pretty dangerous, that could produce some damaging winds, some large hail, and rotating cells, just like the one that has inspired the tornado warning that continues to build toward Carlyle. Now, it looks like it's going through a little bit of evolution as it's working toward the lake. It might even just kind of clip the western edge of Carlyle Lake. But on your right-hand side of your screen, that's what Chris is looking at in the Woods Basement System Storm Runner. And Chris, just to kind of reset the scene here, what are you seeing underneath that cloud?
Updrafts, and downdrafts. We're kind of on the interface where the downdraft on the back side of the storm is slipping in, and there's if nothing else, there is a tremendous amount of motion both up and down within this cell right now. As you look at it visually, it's certainly an ominous look, but as you look at the radar, it looks like it maybe is a little bit more elevated as it pushes maybe a little farther north of the warm front, so it might be getting cut off a bit from the fuel source. Our temperature is actually down to 69 degrees, so that would make sense as we're looking at this. So as this spreads to the northeast towards Tamlico, I think is how you pronounce that, in Keysport, it may be weakening. It's still a hefty storm. Folks are going to see this thing and wonder what's going on, but it doesn't look, the rotation does not look as impressive and much broader here. It looks more almost like a microburst signature than anything else, or a downburst signature. So that is the best news so far. We actually, looking at what's going on out to the west and what's going on here, we may pivot off of this storm in a little bit and head back closer to St. Louis. But we're going to give it a little more time, see if anything develops further south. But I like the trends that we're currently seeing on the storm. It's amazing how quickly the things can change from looking like they're ready to take off, and then the whole thing starts to kind of collapse on you. So right now, we're definitely looking a bit less threatening at this stage of the game.
Still looks pretty wicked, still really dark base, still has quite a bit of rain with it, the potential for hail, maybe some downburst winds, but yeah, we're kind of seeing that as well here on our radar scans, that it's starting to get a little more disorganized. Now, the current warning for the tornado warning is set to expire at 6, and we will follow along with that. And once we get to 6 p.m., the top of 6 p.m., we'll kind of reset things just a little bit here with Fox 2 News at 5 and going into Fox 2 News at 6. But we'll continue to monitor that specific cell, obviously working right along the edge of Carlyle Lake. It continues an eastward to northeastward push. Eventually, we'll get to some of these areas of Keysport, Irishtown, Pope, Kaskaskia. That is just to the south of Vandalia, Illinois, Patoka, and Salem, just to the west of Salem, all moving north and east. So Weather Service kind of indicating to us that they are seeing a little less of a spin with this storm system, so I'm pretty sure that they will allow this warning to expire. But just for the next few minutes, we will obviously monitor that. And I just also really want to show you what's happening widespread here. Doppler 270, 255 loop first. With over 1 million of people here in Metro St. Louis, we also want to monitor what's on tap for us here in St. Louis. We've had some pretty big downpours, no real specific spins, although that's been trying to get going. But we've also had some reports of some small hail in the Lime area, the Melville area. That cell continues to work north and east. Now it's just east of Spanish Lake and in the western side of Madison County. As that works along Illinois Route 3, that'll continue a northeastward push. It's not a severe storm, but hefty downpours. Lightning, you got it. There's quite a bit of that. That indicates energy in the atmosphere and potential for hail. And as we look a little farther south of downtown St. Louis, now working through the central parts of Jefferson County and the southeastern parts of Franklin County, Richwoods, and yes, I don't want to say Potosi again. I don't want to jinx Potosi, but just north of Potosi, there are some rotating storm clouds there. Nothing real evident within that system, but some lightning and some thunder building from south to north. Through the northern parts of Franklin County, we get back into the warned cell that has 60-mile-an-hour winds. Now, that storm system has moved from Dardine Prairie to O'Fallon and is working north toward Winfield. The warning's still holding there. And with that, some damaging winds working toward the southern parts of Lincoln County, and will continue to move. It's a strange direction. It's almost straight north, but almost a northwesterly component to the movement of that storm system. And everything else, nothing really super alarming at the moment. So that is a little bit of good news. And Chris, let's just check back in with you one more time here before we get to the top of the hour. And I'm assuming that this warning is going to be dropped here. That cell that we continue to have a tornado warning for, that's right on the edge of Carlyle, continues to show, at least on the Doppler, signs of weakening. Your picture does look ominous for sure.
It does, and it doesn't help that the sun's coming out to the west a little bit, and it makes the shadowed part of the clouds even darker right now. There really wasn't a ton of wind even with this part of the storm as it came through. It's one of those storms where the bark is worse than the bite, but we still have these little spokes of updraft going into the storm. This would be just north of Carlyle Lake that we're looking at right now, and it's still hanging on. It doesn't, thank goodness, hasn't and doesn't look like it's going to want to produce a tornado. We're going to stick with it for a little bit longer and then head back towards the metro area because we want to give we don't want to give up on our viewers out here to the east and then turn our backs on it and then all of a sudden something happens. So we want to give it one last shot here, make sure that we're giving it the right look and not giving up on it too quickly to give folks the wrong impression. But it does look like a somewhat weaker storm. It's just not rooting down to the ground, and that's keeping it from producing the tornado circulation down to the ground. So good news out here right now from north of Carlyle, a storm that looks much worse than it has played out to be. That's good news.
Yeah, the little storm that thought it could but never did. And we'll call it that. Again, looked really wicked for a while, continues to look ominous by ground truth, but on Doppler radar, and really just over the last few minutes starting to show signs of weakening, or let's call it disorganization. It's still a hefty storm. It still has a potential for hail. It still has a potential for damaging winds. Boy, that part just looks really scary right now. But at the moment, it might be either getting sheared just a little bit, or it might be going through an evolution phase. And either way you slice it, Weather Service has indicated that tornado warning will be dropped here pretty quickly as we see that storm start to shear off to the north and east. Again, it's heading toward Vandalia and Kaskaskia, just south of Greenville. It's right on the edge of Carlyle Lake. It is an ominous, really dangerous looking storm system, but with heavy rain, potentially some hail, and as Chris kind of works along the base of this system, yeah, again, watching all of these things. A lot of times when you see a storm system like that, you'll see little finger clouds develop. That's little scud clouds, as we call them. A lot of times we'll get 47 pictures of a finger cloud, and somebody will say, that's the tornado, or that's a tornado. The dynamics of a system can start to shear the base of these storms and can give us these little spindly looking clouds, and that's sort of one right there. That is not a tornado, but definitely a low base to this storm that has had the tornado characteristics and may very well kind of be going through phasing of the storm that it could re-strengthen here over the next half hour or so, and we'll obviously be monitoring how that is operating. But the storm warning will be dropped here in just a couple of minutes, tornado warning, and we'll continue to monitor all of the other storms that are building across the bi-state area. So technically what we're doing here is we're wrapping up Fox 2 News at 5, and we'll get in here in just a couple of moments to Fox 2 News at 6. We'll bring in our very patient news anchors who have been sitting by here and watching and monitoring our storm coverage, monitoring for damage. Shirley Washington and Mandy Murphy here joining us now with our storm coverage. Guys?
Glenn, thank you. And we will continue to follow this severe weather all evening long. We are going to return our St. Louis 11 viewers to regular programming.